morning, Sena.
I hope you're well.
I am.
First of all, two things are happening here. Were you part of the consultations that led to this increase in tariffs, the major tariff order?
No, please.
Okay. But do you agree with an increase in tariff at this time?
I think it's not a straightforward question. It doesn't deserve a straightforward answer, which is yes or no. I think that if utilities are facing some asset evaluation challenges, or their assets are in deplorable conditions, I think that it goes on Ghanaians, especially end users, to help these utilities improve their assets so that they can deliver the service they do for us at all times. So based on that, I think that there's a bit of justification to increase tariffs so that these increments will help improve investment in modernizing their infrastructure, and also maybe building new infrastructure that will ensure that there's reliability of the supply of power. But sometimes these things are done, yet targets and the results or the outcome from these increments do not confirm or do not justify such increments in earlier times. So it's just a difficult question to answer yes or no, because it is good that these utilities may need this money for investment. But historically, we give them these monies and we don't even get the results in terms of investment. For example, if you look at 2018, adjustments were done upward. I think in 2019, multi-year tariff order was about 29% or so, I think 23 to 29% or so in 2019, which is the first quarter of 2019. But at that time, the system loss was 24 in 2018. But just in 2019, after we got tariff increment, system losses jumped to 30.6. And the reason why we increased multi-year was to modernize the expand infrastructure so that system losses are reduced to benchmark levels of PRC. By the time there's an increment, system losses become worse. So it makes it very problematic in the eyes of Ghanaians to continue to pay these huge tariffs for you to improve your system, yet your system is not improved. The second part also has to do with various reports in the media with respect to certain mismanagement, frivolous procurement, over procurement, and the declaring of revenue, and a whole lot at these utilities. So when these happen in media, where my friends Sena and Co talk about it, ECG, we are under declaring revenue between 2 billion to 5 billion. Either you take the PRS, PricewaterhouseCoopers report, or the Auditor General report, it tells you huge revenues being under declared to the cash waterfall mechanism. When you take Professor, I think Amisa also from UCC, that committee that looked into the procurement of ECG under this particular government, it mentions over procurement of 700%. It mentions frivolous procurement, certain shoddy deals, people not qualified to even hold procurement offices, making Ghana lose huge sums of money, which even was codenamed missing containers or something. These are in the media. And then, so when these mismanagements are happening, when these inefficiencies are happening, and you come to Ghanaians to continue to pay, it becomes very problematic in the eyes of Ghanaians. Now, lastly, also had to do with the communication that came from PRC. I think that PRC was right in their intro, where they mentioned that these increment, or this particular increment in the first quarter, is a capex increment. But when you look at the reasons for the increment, they are OPEX. So, for example, I was just looking at the tariff announcement paper and realized that one of the reasons was that our energy mix in the period will be, I think, 78 for thermal and 20 for natural gas, no, 20 for hydro, and then maybe 2 for renewable energy. Those are mostly operational level expenditure. When you also take the apart from the energy mix, they even introduce WACOG in terms of one of the reasons why they must increase tariff in the first quarter by 9.86. And WACOG is an operational expenditure because weighted average cost of gas or natural gas is an operational thing. So I was expecting that they were going to increase transmission service charge because maybe Gridco may need to expand. And so if Gridco was charging lower because they need new investment in their transmission activities or modernize their transmission, we increase the transmission service charge. If distributors, NETCO or ECG, also needed some funding to modernize or expand transmission, we increase normal distribution rather. We increase their distribution service charge, either 102. So I was expecting the infrastructure aspect or the capex aspect of these expenditure should be seen to be increasing and not the energy mix and the work. So there's also a contradiction in the statement that came out from PRC. I think that they need to relook at it again because the first quarter tariff, as they made us aware, is about capex and not OPEX. So if you are increasing tariff using OPEX, it contradicts your statement. I think that they need to look at that. And so that is the supply side. I think that I've heard TUC and other TUC, I think mostly representing the household. And then I've also heard FABAC, maybe representing firms. Sena, if you take the GLSS data, we call it the Ghana Living Standard Survey data, one expenditure items that affects household mostly is utility. And utility here means rent, water, electricity, and that doesn't even include transportation. So utility, these three items cost about 15% of household expenditure. So the more you increase electricity and water, it means that the household expenditure for utility will continue to increase. So there's likely going to be a trade-off between savings and your ability to stay and consume as you will do when prices were stable. So the real income for utilities will decrease. And if that decrease means that you have to diversify your savings into this particular area of consumption, and that means that you may not be able to invest, and that this is Sena and Co, the middle class who are well-to-do, may not even be able to invest because much of their resources will be moved from savings to be able to pay for their electricity. But for what we call the lowest quintile or the lower income earning group or bracket, most of them are likely going to be pushed into energy poverty because the resources are not even there. So if you continue to increase these tariffs, they may not be able to afford. And what they may do is that even do illegal connection. And I think that is why even in 2018, when adjustment was done by about 23 or so percent, we observed system losses increase to 30.6%. So if the fellow is not able to afford, the next thing this person may do will resort to illegal activities. So the household, there's going to be a problem because especially the lower income earning group are likely going to be pushed more into poverty. Looking at the tariff that was announced to, there's no subsidy. As in Lifeline, consumers are also expected to pay the 9.86%. So if everyone is going to pay, it means that more poverty for low-income earning groups. So households mostly are going to suffer, and some of the middle or income earning groups, or maybe the middle quintiles, are also like, especially those in the SME area selling water and other things, are also likely going to face a challenge in terms of their ability to sustain their businesses. So when you increase, it affects these households. Now, the firm sector, normally when you increase, the cost of operations of firms will go higher, especially those in the high low voltage use bracket. Their cost of operations are going to be higher, making their outputs very uncompetitive. And if the outputs are uncompetitive, it's likely going to lead to redundant employment or retrenchment. They will sack people, and that also feeds into our unemployment numbers. So I have always maintained that beyond the macroeconomic indicator for operational level, or maybe for macroeconomic indicator, which mostly we use inflation and exchange rate, I think that we must also gear towards using affordable electricity to promote industrialization. We must be at that level of using affordable electricity to alleviate a lot of people from poverty. Because when electricity is cheap, at least SMEs expansion, people who can create a lot of jobs can be very innovative and ensure that they are able to do some economic activity that will earn them some basic wage or living wage, for whatever you call it, so that they can still, of course, for survival or sustainability purposes. But when we continue to increase tariffs, where these tariffs do not yield the results we want, I think that it will be unfair to end users, and that is why these allegations are coming.
Because you just, that's why when you are responding to the matter of whether it is justifiable, you said it's not a straightforward question to answer. Now, what sort of balancing act do you expect from government? Because you're talking about affordable electricity, or how this will impact households. These are things that many people have already started complaining about. Even people who back the government have been complaining about it. What do they do? Because now the call is for a reversal. Do they suspend, or what can they do under the circumstances?
So first of all, we need to look at how we generate power. I've always maintained that Ghana, our electricity prices are very expensive, because I told someone yesterday, and I'm repeating it on Radio Gold, that we pay twice on electricity. And today, maybe in the office, we will look at some of these simulations to know how much we pay for electricity on petrol per kilowatt hour, and the actual cost of electricity per kilowatt hour we pay. So if you take some countries that submitted their energy compact to Mission 300, I think there are about 29 countries. We are just now reviewing the English-speaking countries. Ghana has one of the highest electricity prices among the English-speaking countries that submitted their energy compact to Mission 300. The likes of Tanzania are charging 9 cents per kilowatt hour, or sometimes 85 cents per kilowatt hour, or no, that's 8 cents per kilowatt hour rather. If you take Zambia, they're also charging around 9 cents per kilowatt hour. If you take Lesotho, they're also charging around 7 cents per kilowatt hour. So most of the countries, English-speaking countries, even Nigeria, for example, is also charging around 9 cents. Even though I do agree that Liberia is charging around 23 cents, almost similar to what Ghana is charging. But countries within lower middle income countries or bracket are charging a bit favorable tariffs compared to Ghana. So our electricity is very expensive. And it's so because of, one, our contract in gas supply, and two, our contract with IPPs, independent power producers. So gas supply contracts, there are challenges in terms of pricing the contracts, or inflating the contract to benefit whoever will benefit from it. So when you inflate gas supply contract, it makes the end user price very expensive, which I think that government must critically relook at that side too, because that was one of the flags that was reported by what we call the Energy Sector Recovery Program report. Now, beyond the gas supply contract, also has to do with power purchase agreements, where we inflate costs to benefit whoever we want to benefit. But fortunately for us, the power purchase agreement, there have been some renegotiation of these contracts, which have saved us in excess of $200 million, and we must commend government in that regard. So we have to go to the gas too also. So when you are able to save a lot of resources from the generation perspective, it makes your end user price quite affordable. That is that side. Now, if we come to the distribution, we must also try as much as possible to reduce system losses, because system losses alone, looking around 27%, will be about $600 million. So if annually you are losing $600 million, these $600 million could be injected into the system. System planners could inject that into the system to modernize the infrastructure you want to modernize without even levying Ghanaians or without even asking Ghanaians to pay more. So we need to correct that particular issue. So if you look at the system losses to among the low middle income countries, which Ghana is inclusive, or even the countries that submitted the Energy Compact to Mission 300, Ghana has the highest system loss. Ghana has the highest system loss of about 27%. Other Zambia and other countries are doing 15%, 18%. Others are even doing 18%. And we are doing 27%. So we are on the higher side that I think that we need to correct. And these are revenues we are losing. These are wastages we are causing to our state. So we need to try as much as possible. And it should be government policy to ensure that our system losses comes below the benchmark that PURC has set. PURC, I think, has set around 21% or so. It should be below that and not above that, because when it's below that, PURC will now begin to set a new benchmark that is also below the current benchmark that, or the current figures that ECG and NETCO are churning out. But if your system losses are high, you are just losing revenue. That is 2. Now 3, we also need to critically look at our energy sources. When you look at most of the countries that submitted their energy compact with favorable electricity tariffs, most of them are mostly relying on renewable energy. And Ghana, when we talk, yes, we have an endowment of natural gas. And I think the policy of government is that let's use the natural gas we have to power our electricity. But evidently, natural gas is quite becoming very expensive and very volatile based on the international market indicators or whatever geopolitical concerns that may arise. So if natural gas is not helping Ghana to get affordable electricity, to make our industries very competitive, to make our households very sustainable in terms of their living conditions, then we need to rethink and ensure that we get a lot of renewable energy into the space. We need to, and that is the policy of government. If you look at the government transition paper, or if you look at the government renewable energy master plan, there is that focus of ensuring that we're able to attain 30% of renewable in our energy mix by 2030. Yet, we are not committed. Other countries are committed, and for that matter, it is helping them to get cheaper electricity. So when we also become very committed in promoting renewable energy within our energy mix, in the long run, our energy prices become very favorable, and we are not subjected to these periodic increments that we observe in time.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Ron.
Clearly, a lot of improvements need to be made to the current arrangements if we want to do better with electricity prices. One of the things people have complained about consistently has been the wastage, of course. There's a lot of talk about the fact that we need to deal with the waste in the system. Yesterday, even the minority MPP, they just left power. They were complaining about the wastage, that there's a need for the waste to be addressed. But the waste will be addressed through a series of actions. You cannot easily go one day and address them. So we'll be seeking for the response of the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission on this matter, because the labor union says engagements were started, they were never conclusive, they truncated the engagement, and they want the consultative process to be exhausted before. But in the meantime, they want a suspension